welcome. I am Tootight Lautrec, the Master Mistress of Glitterature Alley, and here we are once again at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have two unbelievably sensational lions on the front steps paying attention to whatever wafts their way in this wild and wonderful world. Today, I have decided to talk about Oliver Goldsmith's The Vicar of Wakefield, which is also unbelievably sensational, but not quite in the best sense of the phrase. I chose this because, number one, I've never read it before, and number two, because in Jane Austen's Emma, Harriet Smith is telling Emma about someone for whom she holds quite a torch, and that is one Robert Martin. And Emma asks if Robert Martin is a reader, and Harriet says, well, that she knows that he has read The Vicar of Wakefield. So I thought, if Robert Martin has read The Vicar of Wakefield, so too should Tootight Lautrec. So, The Vicar of Wakefield. First published in 1766, The Vicar of Wakefield is a sentimental Christian pastoral novel about a rather hapless vicar named Dr. Primrose, who starts out not exactly poor, but not exactly wealthy either. He's sort of lower middle class. But he is happy because he is happily married and he loves his family and his family is all around him. And he's not rich, but he's happy. Then, through misadventures, bad luck, and other sorts of untoward occurrences, he gets kicked down and dragged out and put upon financially and socially over and over and over again in a series of fast-paced, somewhat unbelievable occurrences involving reversals of fortune, involving unmaskings of formerly disguised friends who reveal themselves as enemies, and others unmasked as poor neighbors who reveal themselves to be wealthy benefactors. So it's quite a ride. And through it all, Dr. Primrose maintains his goodness and benevolence despite all of his misfortunes, which in the end is his saving grace. There's a lot going on here in The Vicar of Wakefield. There's the happy family of Primrose and his wife and their children. There's a daughter who scandalously runs off with another man, or with a man. There's prostitution. There's theft. There's dirty dealing. There's acting in a comedy troupe, no less. Talk about scandal. And then, of course, there's the shifting of power relations between the rich and the poor, the worldly and the retired, and the good and the bad. And as a reader, I admit that I was sometimes bored, because between episodes of adventures and misadventures, there were occasionally sermonizings and philosophizings that went on a little bit too long for my taste. And I have to say, my patience, or rather my lack thereof, my patience for coincidence and complications that neatly wrap up improbable events so that the book ends in a very neat and tidy way, my patience for that was severely tested. Turns out the dead are not really dead. Heavens to Murgatroyd. The bad are not really bad. Hell in a handbasket. The good are not really good. Oh, my homunculus. And at the end, almost everyone lives happily ever after. And yet, despite all of this, it was a ride, and there is something about the fast-paced silliness of plot turns and plot twists and sudden reveals that is somewhat appealing, and to which I can't really object all that much. I can object, but not all that much. As a writer, I am always interested, though, whenever I see writers doing things that I strive to avoid. like unbelievable reversals of fortune, coincidences that wrap up the plot a little bit too neatly, forced denouements that bring everything to a close, but in a little bit of forced manner. But, and it's a really nice little but, I also have to face the realization that having things come together in a book is a real pleasure for readers. So the challenge for writers, I think, is to find a way to let their characters range widely and wildly, to let the personalities of the characters and the situations that we create for them lead them organically to an ending that is still satisfactory in some sort of aesthetic way, whether it's a tragedy or a comedy. And it set me to thinking, when I think of the writing mind, I think of two major components to the writing mind: the controlling mind and the dreaming mind, which writers need both. In The Vicar of Wakefield, it seems to me that the controlling mind is dominant here. We see the writer exerting control over the characters, pushing his characters around and making them do this or that, and imposing situations that seem to come out of nowhere to effect a convenient closure. Conversely, when I think of the dreaming mind is the inventive mind. And this is the spark that comes from giving characters personalities that are clear and specific, full and complicated, and then setting those characters in a situation that is also clear and full, so that you can find what they do in those situations interesting, so that they can spark something between themselves, and you can watch them. You can sort of sit back and watch them as if they were real people, which is what you want your readers to feel, that the people that they're reading about are real and it's really happening. And the best approximation I can come to this, an example of a dreaming mind, is, and I think that we all do this, whether we're writers or not. If you think about somebody who you know well, or someone who you've observed closely, or even someone who you've observed from afar and you don't know very much about, but you begin to invent things that you think that they might be like. If you think about putting those people into a room and then creating a situation in which strong emotions will come to the surface. And when I think about this, I think about the seven deadly sins and the seven virtues that counter them. So for instance, like greed and envy, lust, pride, sloth, wrath, gluttony, charity, chastity, temperance, patience, zeal, kindness, humility. If you can get a situation in which you go from the abstract of those huge emotions to the specifics of what might happen in a room and put these people in it, you can ask yourself, well, if these people are there in this particular situation, what will they do? A may say this, and then B will do that. And then C will say something back to A, and then A will do something, this, that, or the other. And in that way, the dreaming mind takes over, and you can kind of sit back and watch as your characters lead you on. And they may lead you astray. It often happens, but it's something that it's kind of like a daydream life that leads you towards some overwhelming finale, is what you hope. So that's what I call the dream mind. I feel that the books to which I'm most drawn appear, and I say appear because we can never really know what goes on in the writer's mind, another writer's mind. The books to which I'm most drawn appear to have the dream mind dominant, or they appear to have a really wonderful balance between the controlling mind and the dream mind, because you do need both. And those books that I feel have the dream mind dominant are things like, of course, Jane Austen, all of Jane Austen. John Cheever's stories fit the bill as well. Albert Camus, The Stranger and the Plague, that man knew how to write an ending. And if you haven't read Albert Camus' The Stranger or The Plague, I suggest that if you do, you should get the Stuart Gilbert version because, wow, they're amazing. Also, I will add to this category Herman Melville. Moby Dick, Bartleby the Scrivener, Billy Budd. It's just, you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens, and it's really a thrill to be reading while you're in those books. And also, I will say Marilynne Robinson's Housekeeping. And, fight with me if you will, but I still feel that Housekeeping is Marilynne Robinson's best novel, or it's the one that I love the most. But so those are all books that I think where the dream mind led to the end. And books that I feel may have been written with the controlling mind more dominant would be books by Charles Dickens and some by Mark Twain, although I have to get more into Twain to find out if I actually believe that statement. But what I've read, I think that is true. The only thing is that because Twain and Dickens have such tremendous control over language and their language skills are so exceptional, I forgive them quite a bit for pushing their characters around or creating situations that are a little too coincidental to bring things to a close. And I forgive them completely. And I have to say, humor does help. And The Vicar of Wakefield falls into that category as well. Just the fast-paced silliness of the things that occur when they occur to make things all neat and tidy at the end is sort of funny and quite enjoyable in some weird way that I can't quite figure out why I'm not tossing it out the window. So while The Vicar of Wakefield doesn't feel constructed with the dream mind dominant, it is constructed to please. The characters are full enough, and I felt for them through all of their travails. And when everything does come out happily at the end, I was happy for these characters because I grew to like them, because they were written fully enough for me to feel some sort of a relationship with as a reader. And that, I feel, is a real accomplishment for a writer. As far as The Vicar of Wakefield being a book that Robert Martin read in Jane Austen's Emma, I have to consider its qualities. It is sometimes slightly salacious. It is sometimes crude, one might even say rustic, but in the end, it's a very moral book that praises marriage, praises benevolence, and praises good character. So bravo, Robert Martin, for reading it, and bravo, Harriet Smith, for finally coming around and agreeing to marry him, which is an event that did grow through mishaps, adversity, actions, and events that felt real and wholly in line with each of the characters in Emma. So bravo, or brava, as they say, to Jane Austen once again. So that's The Vicar of Wakefield. Now, because I am a very slow reader, I think that I'm going to have to take a little bit of a break to read some more and also probably to write some more to boot. And I'll be coming back with more reading as a writer episodes. But I know that I've got some Carson McCullers on my calendar. I would really love to read Bleak House again. I would really love to read Moby Dick again. And then there are some newer books that have come out in the past, 10 years or so that are modern that I would also like to read. So I'd like to start getting some of those under my belt before I come back again with this series. So until then, until I see you again, I may come out with a few things here or there, this or that, sort of weird, sort of not. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how organized I can be on my own. But until then, wonders never cease. They are all around, and all we have to do is pay attention. Until next time, I am Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.